Welcome to AI Unfiltered. I'm your host, Mantasuri. If you're new to this channel, I'm an engineering leader with over 20 plus years of experience in startups all the way to Fortune 500 companies. My goal for this podcast is to talk about AI and its real life applications, separating it from the hype, really talking about AI in an unfiltered way. I would really appreciate it if you can please like and subscribe to this channel so I can continue to bring you this content. Let's get started. I'm here today with a very special guest, Sumit Garg, who is co-founder and CTO of Oddr, which is an invoice-to-cash platform for law firms. Sumit is a seasoned software developer and engineering leader with over 2 decades of experience across industries such as travel, insurance, healthcare, web app security, and most recently, legal tech. And before funding his legal tech startup, Oddr, Sumit played a key role at Intap, a large publicly traded legal tech company where he was one of the early employees and led the global platform, integration, and data services engineering teams. So I'm really excited to be talking to Sumit today because we haven't really talked about the legal tech aspects and how it integrates with AI. So Sumit, welcome. Really excited to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Mamta. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm a big fan. Happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about Oddr and how does it leverage AI to optimize financial operations and law firms. Usually those are like words we don't even see coming together. Financial operations, law firms, tech, AI. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yes. So Oddr is an invoice to cash platform for law firms. And at a very high level, we help law firms bill faster and collect more. We do this by optimizing their financial operations. For example, we handle all the invoice delivery for the firms via automation, and that saves them days and days of manual work to draft an email, attach invoice PDF, sending them to people, following all the billing guidelines. We also eliminate errors via this automation, which can be very costly to the firms in terms of compromised client confidentiality or firm's reputation, for example. You don't want to send a wrong invoice, which has a lot of confidential information to the wrong client. We help these firms track these invoices at a very granular level, so you know exactly what to track and what to look for. And doing all of this, we also improve clients' experience in this process and allow clients to pay easily online and make reconciliations easier for the firms. So overall, the net impact for our platform is more than 1% of the firm's revenue, which translates to millions of dollars for a typical large firm. We really use AI where it makes sense. Some of the areas where we leverage AI is to predict cash flow. We study the firm's past AR, payment trends, seasonality. Different practice areas work different ways, so we study all those patterns. We also study specific client payment patterns to come up with the cash flow predictions, which helps with financial planning and operational efficiency at the firm. We also use AI to detect anomalies. So if a client behavior is indicating that the client may be at risk in terms of, let's say, reducing their legal work with the firm, that's a big deal. We flag that. We also do these anomalies at the invoice level based on client behaviors, so corrective actions can be taken quickly.
So that's really wonderful. So you're using predictive modeling and predictive analysis to forecast behavior and be proactive ahead of the game so that your clients can actually take action before it's an issue. So that's very impactful. You mentioned that, Oddr is taking a thoughtful approach, adding AI where it makes sense. What do you mean by that? Can you explain that?
Yes. So one of the driving principles for us as we, got started to build out this platform was continuous discovery. We talked to like 80, 90 people before we wrote a single line of code. And we did that to create and validate our hypothesis that we had built over time. So we continue to do that today. We love to talk to our prospects, our customers to see what problems they have. And most importantly, the root cause of those problems. And when we are doing this, we are not thinking about AI or how we're going to solve this. We just want to understand the problem. And we are only interested in making our users' lives easier. We get to how we solve these problems later during the process, but it's all about, building something meaningful that's solving a problem for your users. And AI is not easy. It's very powerful. It's not easy, especially getting it right and getting your users to trust it to take actions. So if you're not doing this right, it just becomes a gimmick and they lose trust in the system. So we use it where it makes sense. If the problem is straightforward and predictable, I guess simple automation can be more effective. And that's really our philosophy.
Yeah, this is what I've heard over and over again. This is what I also believe in, that AI's just become a buzzword. We've been doing things in the past years. We just used to call it algorithms. And now we're just using the word AI for everything. And I really like the mindful approach that Oddr is taking. First of all, find out what the customer problems are, find out what the use cases are, where AI can add value, and then add AI to help those use cases instead of figuring out, okay, we need to use AI and then going backwards. The reality is that AI has to be done mindfully because there's a lot of different regulations and compliance and privacy that surround it. So I want to know from you, being in the legal tech, what are some of the challenges you have seen with AI?
Yes, I guess the biggest challenge is fairly generic across all industries. It's the data silos and the data quality. The legal industry maybe suffers more here. The bulk of the data lives in these legal financial management systems that are pretty old, heavy. They're infinitely customizable, which, does offer a lot of flexibility, but becomes a big pain in terms of maintenance and data quality. Over time, just the quality of data keeps on going down. Also, the law firms use so many different siloed data sources or systems. So data cleansing and integration becomes a challenge. We do bring this data in and we turn it into a generic model that remains consistent across all the firms, which helps a lot. So there is some work in abstraction where this is challenging, but beyond that, simplifies the process a little bit. The other thing that's very unique to law firms is the data privacy. You hear about healthcare all the time, but law firms are way more protective of their data than any other industry, and for good reasons. You don't want, any confidential litigation information going out before the right time. So security is a big concern for the law firms, and we take it very seriously at Otter. We have built a lot of frameworks around data protection and how we manage all this data. And finally, the challenge is just the unique nature of firms. Law firms just operate very differently from one another. Some firms are more focused on a certain practice area like immigration, and some other firm may be more focused on corporate legal. And you can imagine how these clients and their behaviors would be completely different. The demographics play a significant role. Some of these are pretty unique to law firms, but the data silos and quality remains the biggest one.
Yeah, it all starts with the data. So if the data is not cleaned and not massaged enough to put into these models, then it's not going to give the results out. I like to use the analogy of garbage in, garbage out, just because you're making a healthy drink with a blender. But if you put a lot of sugar in and a lot of carbs in, just because it's in a blender doesn't mean it's a healthy drink. You still have to put the green vegetables and the fruits in to get the healthy drink. So it all starts with data. And that's the unglamorous side of it, that the data cleanup does take up time. And with that, I would like to pivot into that if a business wants to get started in that arena, besides the data cleanup, what are some of the other things they should be considering?
So, again, AI is very powerful, and with the right data, it can solve a lot of problems, add a lot of value, especially with the recent advancements and, ChatGPT giving this exposure to general population. People are more willing than ever to adopt the technology. Again, I would say use AI where it solves a problem in a meaningful way. That would be the biggest takeaway. Again, I kind of harping on that point again. It's very easy to get technology focused rather than user focused, especially for young entrepreneurs. Just use it where it makes sense. Start with a pilot project in a controlled environment, get feedback, continue iterating with your early adopters before you go all in. Continue talking to your users. Even after you go build a solution, just continue talking. That's the most important thing you can do. The key point again is to solve a problem for your users. Technology is secondary, and that's why they will pay for your solutions.
I like the way you said it. It's a means to the end. Like, don't start with technology first and then try to see what problem you're solving. So start with your use case, then look at the data, and then look at the technology that you're going to use. And One of the things we have seen in the industry is that AI is going to replace everything, or we are going to have AI CEO, AI marketer, AI this, AI that. And what are your thoughts on that? Because I am of the belief that we still need human interaction. So what are your thoughts on, this AI-driven automation, the need of innovation, and still having that human touch?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Mamta. There are some scenarios where yes, AI is probably gonna replace certain roles, but most of the scenarios do need a human interaction. I'll give you an example in the legal industry. So there are internal touch points, and then there are things you do that your impact the client. The internal areas you could potentially, as AI advances and gets more sophisticated, you could do some pretty good solutions where no intervention is necessary. But for something like a client touch point, because of the attorney client relationship, which is very sensitive, and law firms that really, really like to take care of their clients and give them this wide glove service, you will never solely rely on AI to go nudge a client or to do something automatically with the client. You would want to review this. AI can be very good at flagging some of these issues or things that you may want to touch bases on with the clients. But again, you will need to review this, have some human interaction before you go and nudge the client. And again, there are some things where, like cash flow predictions, for example, our cash flow prediction models work pretty well, but sometimes there are these unpredictable deals, mergers, lateral hires that can throw off the entire predictions, and you want some manual intervention to do the balancing here. So AI can replace a lot of areas, but to get rid of humans, I think that's a pretty far-fetched proposition at this time.
And if you look at the models themselves, every time a big model has been launched, whether it's by OpenAI or Google or Meta, we have seen the interesting bugs that have come up. So there was an instance where you keep repeating the same word over and over again, and I think it was OpenAI, it spit out the whole data that it was trained on. So if the models can behave like that, then if we have these sensitive use cases with confidentiality and privacy issues, that we need to have some oversight. So I like that at Oddr and legal tech in general, that human interaction is needed. So switching gears a little bit, we talked about Oddr and we talked about AI and the use cases and the value it offers to their clients. What about your own productivity? Are you using any AI tools for your own productivity, whether personally or at your office?
Yeah, so I guess I'd be lying if I said I don't use ChatGPT. We use it. We never feed the customer confidential data to these public AI engines that as a company policy. But things like, hey, I have this tooltip help text I want to put in the application. Can you help me shrink it, make it more concise? It does a pretty good job at those kind of things. And with so many other services we use like Outlook, Jira, Teams, there's a lot of AI behind the scenes, and it's getting better over time. It does give you meaningful insights into your operations. Just personally, we have a lot of Google Home Assistants at home, which are very good at recognizing what you want them to do or the questions you ask. I personally love Google Photos. I think they have completely solved the issue of managing your photos manually. So another cool thing I really use a lot is the Apple Watch, and it gives you so many health insights, and all of that's using AI behind the scenes. So, Apple Music recommendations, Netflix recommendations, all of those things. List is pretty long.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of these things, we've been living with it forever, like Netflix recommendations, Amazon recommendations, and even the Google Photos. I love when it sends a look 2 years back, 3 years back. And it's such a nice way to just look at the picture and look where you had been. Some of these things we are just so used to, like when our kids, they can't believe that we used to have TVs that where you had to actually get up and change the channels. And then we had remotes that were wired eventually, till we got to the wireless remotes. And now you can just talk to your TV and ask it to switch on, change channels, and so on. So, which brings me to future of AI. What do you think the next generation will be? Imagine you wake up 20 years from now. What do you think the future looks like?
That's a complex question. I think we're gonna see a lot of robotics, in my opinion. So I don't think it's a far-fetched reality where there'll be machines doing work for us, like walking around and doing chores that normal humans do. The self-driving cars, there is something existing today, but it's still far from being actually self-driving. So I think that would become a reality. I think we would be writing applications or developing solutions completely differently. You're not going to be writing code as we understand today to build these applications and solutions. And one of the other areas I believe AI is going to have a very meaningful impact on is just healthcare. You're going to be in real time almost. You're going to know your body vitals and what you should be doing, what you should be eating, how everything you're doing is having impact on these vitals and help you live a healthier, longer life. And just the ability to be diagnosed early and treat issues early on, I think there's going to be a very, very meaningful impact with AI on these things.
What are your thoughts on AGI?
Regarding AGI, I believe there are some things unique to humans. The consciousness we have been given, and it's kind of really hard to tell how far AI will go and how conscious it can become. In my opinion, it's not possible. It can get close, but for AI to do meaningful things, it needs creativity at the core. So you could create creativity, but there are limits to that. So I am of the belief that consciousness we have is special to humans, and I don't think AI will ever reach that level.
Yeah, I'm an optimist also, so I agree with that because we humans even don't understand consciousness. So if we don't understand it, how we can teach a program to do it? So I would also like to believe that, any time in the near future, I don't think it's going to be possible.
I think overall, we're just living in a very special era. It's one of those pivotal points where we'll see how AI plays out. It's gonna solve a lot of problems. Some of them we haven't even imagined yet. So I think these are very exciting times.
I'm really excited for the kids, the teens who are going to be now entering the workforce pretty soon to see what they come up with and all of the innovative ideas they have and how these intersections are going to happen. There's just so many use cases and so much innovation, and we can actually use it for good. I worry about the risks, but I think there is enough good people in this world that we can actually use this technology for good. Any other thoughts you want to leave our listeners with, Sumit?
Yeah, if you're building something, if you're focused on solving a problem again, I think that's the most important thing I would leave people with, whoever's listening. Just focus on solving the problem. Just listen to your users. Keep doing that. Just over and over, I've seen companies kind of lose that at some point as they grow. But if you're close to your users, if you're listening to them, if you're reacting to their needs, there is no limits to your success. So that's the key point, and that's what we need to do as entrepreneurs.
That's very well said. Be customer focused, be customer centric first and foremost, and solve the user's problems and technology as a second. Thank you so much, Sumit, and thank you for being on AI Unfiltered.